Jessa is only with Adam because of his income. I love Jessa, I love Adam, says Various Conditions 985, and I love Jessa and Adam, but wanted to share the speculation. How much is Jessa with Adam for his income potential? There's a heavy theory that Jessa is pregnant in the finale with Adam's baby. We get the impression that Adam's career is on the up and up. One might speculate that he goes on to become a well-respected, well-known, and therefore wealthy actor. Jessa knows this and believes in and predicts his success. We know she didn't get with Thomas John by accident. And the fact that he is the only guy who made a profit in the recession will have been a subconscious element in her decision-making. So do we think that Jessa is going to be accidentally, on purpose, having a baby by a wealthy actor who can fund her lifestyle well into the future, even if they separate? This is the first girls' theory that we're breaking down today. My name is Kira. This is Studio Violet. If you love content like this, go ahead and hit subscribe. Now, Deep Interest 9947 says, I don't think Jessa has ever had to think about money long enough to even consider a partner as well. So there's already two different perspectives here. There's one perspective that like Jessa actually is so strategic about things that she already knows exactly what she's getting herself into before she even gets into it. And a completely different one where she has no idea. She doesn't think that deep. And I was actually watching the episode last night when she goes to visit her dad. And I've mentioned in other videos that she is not my favorite character. She's actually like my least favorite character. But I gotta say, during this watch around, I'm starting to get a lot of empathy for Jessa. Whether I agree with this or not, let's see and read a few more. Someone replies and says, yes, in the sense of consciously thinking about it, being so wholly self-aware of it, but perhaps unconsciously or not so consciously, she ain't messing with no truly broke dudes. Great Gatsby 26 says, I don't think his money had anything to do with it. I actually don't think Jessa got with Thomas John for his money. She got with him because the speech her former employee made to her got to her, and she wanted to cling to something that seemed stable and ordinary. If she truly cared about money, she would have made things work with Thomas John, which wouldn't have been hard as long as she made an effort in certain ways. Men seem to flock to Jessa, and she's in New York City, so if she wanted a rich guy, she would have found one, rather than fighting attraction to Adam for months. I don't think Adam was all that rich when they first got together, and his money was new and not sure to last forever. Welcome to Brooklandia says, wealthy actor's not really a thing at Adam's level. He's a stage actor who's been in a Broadway show. No actors are making crazy gold-digging money. But then we're also seeing other people saying, but remember, he also got other jobs. There was the ad for antidepressant. Ads pay pretty well. He also plays the homeless guy in the TV show with Lucy Liu. But then, what I've been waiting for to hear, he offers to pay for her school with the ad money. Young122915 says, Jessa has never relied on a man for money. She and Shosh get money from their grandmother as far as I can remember. Jessa mentioned Gran would only pay for an international trip if she went to rehab, and throughout the series I understood that both of the cousins get some sort of family income, and I'm assuming it's from grandma. That's a good point, because Shosh is living in the city when she's still in she's in college, and I guess it doesn't really mean that like you have money when you're in college, but there is a point to that. It's really hard because these are all really great points. I feel like I have to just bring into consideration like Jessa's addiction habits, and I think she's more of a SLA and addicted to love than she is with looking for people for their money. I remember that scene when her and Thomas John got into a big fight and she came back to Hannah's apartment and she was crying. I mean, even if you were in for the money, I'm sure you'd be upset anyway, but I think her issue more is just the addictive lifestyle, is just constantly getting something new, getting addicted to a man, getting addicted to an idea. That's kind of where I think she's living. I don't know, because I agree. Like, I think she can find a job any day. I mean, I'm thinking of when she's walking on the street with Shoshana and she's like, I want to work in that children's clothing store. And Shoshana's like, you have a criminal record. And she goes in and she gets the job. And she's really terrible at it. She knows how to make money if she needs to. I don't agree with this. I think she's more of an addict to love and substances than she is like strategically trying to find guys and date them because of their money. Fan theory number 2 is the body types in girls are so accessible and affirming. Rosemary's Babe says, I've been rewatching Girls. It's amazing the effect that looking at normal bodies has had on my own body image in a positive way. Lena and Jem feel so accessible and healthy and confident. It's really emphasized how much has changed in the last decade. I think Shosh and Marnie too, like they're all different body types. And there's a joke I was thinking last night when Hannah was dealing with OCD. And I think she had called Jessa on the phone because she had checked herself into rehab, but no one knew that. So Hannah's like, where are you, Jess? Like, who am I supposed to talk to? Like, anorexic Marnie, even like referencing the fact that Marnie is like skinnier in a negative way. I think it's just a funny joke. And like Hannah specifically just has a body that is just so much more normal than we see on TV all the time. Ziltoid says, and quotes from girls, I'm not going to be edged out of my own life by girls who don't even have any interesting fat deposits on them, rattles around in my head often. Humble Hair Zero says, I know my body is confusing, but yes, I am pregnant is one of those lines for me. And her referring to herself as a dumpling. I just love that she's speaking to it directly. And I actually said in the last video that I do desire for a time where TV shows like don't even have to address things like that. This is a period piece in a sense. Like this at the time that it was released, it had to be said because we were just coming out of the era of the 90s of heroin chic. So conversations needed to be said about this. At some point in the future, hopefully a conversation won't need to be said because it just becomes so normalized that no one's even thinking about it. We don't think about right now when we watch TV and it's an all-girls cast. But if we were, I mean, wasn't TVs hundreds of years ago, but if there was like a play with all women hundreds of years ago, people would be like, this is groundbreaking, we all need to talk about it. Like even men would play women on stage in Shakespeare. But now it's become so normalized that it's not even a thing. I mean, we can talk about it a little bit, but we see more and more of this happening. Speaking of decades ago, Deep Interest 9947 says, a decade ago, it wasn't like TV shows were filled with normal bodies. There's a reason people talked about the bodies in girls all the time. Oh, someone mentioned Shrill, and I did start watching Shrill. I haven't gotten too far into it. Who's Mumbling says 1,000%. I remember all the fuss about Lena's unconventional body when the show was on, and with each consecutive rewatch, I find that 2010's discourse more and more bizarre. She just looks normal. Bleebloop 1777 says, and no lip fillers, and a lot of people are saying, you know, I miss the regular pre-filler actress's face. I'm just thinking of that like iconic character in season 3 of Euphoria where she's supposed to play like what, like a Mormon or just somebody who's really Christian and has never basically seen technology in her life. And it's like very clear that she got a lot of stuff done to her face, or at least like that's what it looks like on our end. Chimes 320 says, 20-something me needed this show, and unfortunately I did not discover it until I was nearly 40. Still, I can work on healing past me and the barrage of body image messages that clouds my ability to find any beauty in myself then. Agreed. This came out when I was in like high school going into college, and I really could have used it. I was watching more like Pretty Little Liars vibes, and they all had a very similar body type. I wouldn't say I had any eating disorders. I knew people who had eating disorders. I would say there were sometimes I had disordered eating, like I would try different diets. I was a competitive gymnast. I did competitive dance. So there were people all around me just being like, I want to get rid of these thighs, and I want to try the cereal diet where you eat cereal for breakfast and lunch, and then you could eat anything at dinner. Like all these crazy things that I think back to now and I talk to my friend about, and she's like, what? That's crazy. I'm like, yep. It's weird. Young 122915 says, to think it's worse now, even considering at the time Lena got shamed for being heavy. Some seasons she's thin. I just read Famesick and she mentions that she was told to gain weight because the network didn't want a repeat of Sex and the City with 4 thin friends. Jem is amazing. She did also learn that for some of girls, she is postpartum filming weeks. Yeah, I think she had her baby and started filming the first episode like a few days later. Comment if you know the details. I want to say it was like a few days after she gave birth. They continue, in the current climate we live in when the entire US is obese, but at the same time obsessed with weight loss and weight loss medication, it's amazing to go back and see this work of art from a different time. Yeah, there is this strange kind of like, we're so extreme on one side or another. You know, when I get my blood test done, I don't ask the doctor like, oh, well, how is my blood compared to like the US average? Because the US average is not healthy. So I'm like, what is actually good levels, like compared to it being good, not the US average? There's consistently obesity issues in America, but now we're seeing this very scary GLP-1 Ozempic crisis where people who don't even need it are on it, and we're going back to that heroin chic. And so we're not really even seeing bodies in the middle. And when we do, we're calling them chubby. I mean, I've seen things online that call Sabrina Carpenter chubby, that call the girl from off campus chubby, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, how does this make any sense at all? And it's weird me even saying this and perpetuating it, but I feel like it has to be said because of how ridiculous it is. I agree. I wish that I saw the show when I was in my late teens, early 20s. It would have been really healing for me to see different bodies on screen. And I remember the first time I watched this about a year ago, and I'm like, I can't believe this is what I'm seeing on screen. Like, a body that looks totally different than what we're seeing, naked on screen for so long, like more naked than the other bodies. And no one's talking about it. Like, they were probably talking about it, but I didn't hear it. Like, I'm like, I can't believe I know this now. It was wild. I love it so much. Fan theory number 3 is that the mumble-core scenes were the best scenes in the show. Specifically, particular pin 8627 says, in praise a subtle performance. And we're looking at Charlie's performance, probably singing Hannah's diary. And then I think this might be the same scene over here. Let's see. Some of my all-time favorite moments are the subtlest, most mumble-core-esque scenes, usually from season 1. I'm the biggest fan of the writing on girls, but sometimes just an expression makes me laugh harder than anything. I completely agree. Picture 1 is when Charlie makes that face at Marnie during Hannah's diary. That's a combination of like hurt and bitter, but also, yeah, you got caught. What now? He says so much with that look and eyebrow raise. It kills me. Let's go back to it. That's also what comes, I think. I haven't been on set enough to know this, so hey, casting directors over here, I'm ready when you are. What I imagine from my experience acting on stage in college and such is when you have a good director, when you have a director that's like, hey, I want you to feel confident that like you don't need to get all the lines right. I want you to be in the moment. I want you to be truthful. Things like this happen. I feel like that was a space that Lena and Judd provided, because I think I see so many moments like this of just pauses or the camera going to another person and I'm just like, what? Like, it's just so funny and truthful. This second picture, follow up to this scene in the next episode, Hard Being Easy, when Hannah asks Marnie if she would have liked the essay if it wasn't about her, just as a piece of writing, and Marnie's so disgusted she can't even respond except to stare at her like this. Because Hannah's like, listen, I know your relationship just kind of exploded in front of a bunch of people, but like, was my writing at least good? I also think this happened because these actors are so good. They're so good. This cast is so darn good. And they were given the permission to do a lot of improv. I've mentioned this in other videos, but I've heard that there would be scenes where Judd is like, okay, do this scene, but on this line, I want you to change it every time. So one of the first episodes, I think it was the first episode, where Jessa says, oh, I don't want to do this particular drug because every time I do it, I shit my pants. That was one of those moments where Judd was like, say something different every time. Well, that's why Jem kind of chuckles, because that was one of the improv's lines that she just decided to do. She's like, I don't know what to say, do my band. It's the direction, it's the acting, it's just a combination of this incredible team. I already agree, but let's hear what other people have to say. The moment, Lucky Movie 3968 says, in season 3, episode 8, when Hannah and Adam are just sitting in silence in the diner and both are realizing it's not gonna work out, it's a masterclass in subtle performance and always makes me cry. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I am dying to know what the direction for that scene was, because you see it all with your eyes. I mean, they broke up with their facial expressions. Tell me another TV show where that's happened. I can't think of one. You see Hannah, I don't remember what the last line was, but she just starts having this look where she's like, crap, crap, crap. And then you see him and he's almost like, don't do it. And she's like, I have to, I can't do this. And this is all with their eyes. This is all with their eyes. And he's like, okay, fine. And then he goes, so what are you doing later? And that line basically says, I understand. We're broken up now. Lucky Movie 3968 says that and the scene in the hospital when Adam asks for Hannah back in season 4, episode 10, Lena absolutely kills it. And the way his outstretched hand drops and she just shakes her head is so realistic. Back to Charlie, Cultural Iron 2372 says, totally agree on Charlie. His acting shows masculine pain in a way that was so realistic, but also somehow magnetic in a way I barely ever see. He played it right on the exact line of a guy who's too dense and bro-y to be interested, and a guy who can realistically pull in a lover girl because he's intriguing or seems deep. The news is in those kids. Jessie C. Schmidtnick, love this username. Oh my gosh, I'm planning on doing a New Girl series at some point, so love says, I love that reaction from Marnie. I also love the subtle throwaway lines that characters say when they don't actually understand what the other person's talking about. Shosh. Literally entirety of season 1 and 2. There's a scene where Booth is telling Marnie about the cultural touchstones of the 1980s, and in response she says, yeah, I mean, the 90s were just like a straight line. Yeah. There's so much humor in all like the pretentious artists, and I feel like Hannah plants that so well. She plants it. There's so many pretentious artist moments in New York City. Also, when she goes to graduate school, like, just so funny because she grew up with 2 artistic parents, so she has had her fair share of artists that are just like trying to be obscure for the sake of being obscure, and it's the most annoying thing ever, and it just captured it so well. Similarly, they continue. Elijah tells Hannah they should host a French salon. I watched this the other day and she goes, oh my god, that's such a good idea because I always secretly thought I'd be great at cutting hair. And he's like, no, like not that type of salon. Balanced Scorpio, this is a good one. Season 6, episode 7, American. The scene at the end of the episode when Hannah is watching Chuck, played by Matthew Rhys, while he's watching his daughter perform Desperado on violin. After that whole thing of him whipping out his and her putting her hand on it, and oh my gosh, her trying to take in and piece together the emerging layers of his flawed, complex character. Oof, it gets me every time. That was such a great episode. I wouldn't say that's my favorite episode. Like, I almost sometimes want to skip that episode, but watching it for the first time is really good because there is such a layer where he's talking about, I'm not doing these crazy things that people are accusing me to college girls, and his daughter just comes in after he does this really inappropriate thing with Hannah. He doesn't even flinch. He's like, hey there. Like, normal people would be like, oh my God. No, he's so used to it. And then he's so comfortable with Hannah being there with his daughter while she's being all innocent and expressive. And they just shared this really gross, non-consensual moment like it was nothing. TUSA in Panic in Central Park, when Marnie realizes the girl wants her towel back, her face is just... When you watch this over and over again, this is why I love rewatching TV shows and love to talk to you about it, because when you rewatch it over and over again, the first watch around, it's for watching a new show. The second watch around is remembering some details. The third, remembering more details. As you're into like the 4th, 5th, 6th watch around, you're noticing these little moments. And you're like, what was that? Was that directed? Was that not directed? Was that improv? Who chose to keep that in? Why did they choose to keep that in? Like, I feel like I'm getting a master class in acting whenever I'm rewatching the show, and other shows like it. Completely agree with this theory. Mumble-core scenes were the best. If you have any other ones that you like that weren't mentioned, drop them in the comments below, because they're definitely a super deep cut, but I feel like this space is exactly for the deep cut girlies who remember things like that. And if you like this content so far, definitely hit subscribe, like the video if you're enjoying it, and let me know if you have any opinions that are different from mine. I'm all about continuing to have a conversation in the comments. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Like, let's talk about it, my friend. Fan theory number 4, Adam's desires are dark AF, says Cupweird 1005. I haven't really seen anyone discuss this, but I'm rewatching Girls, and the amount of times Adam references or wants to roleplay dirty talk involving him engaging estrally with a baby or child is crazy. In season 3, episode 10, Hannah mentioned something along the lines of him liking that her body is like a baby's. Obviously, it's dark and edgy humor and a fictional character, and it fits the tone of Girls. I'm just surprised it's never brought up in discussions about Adam's general creepiness. Now, I know before I read the comments, when I read Famesick, a lot of this relationship between Hannah and Adam is very similar to a relationship that Lena had with somebody else in her life. And she brought this up in Famesick, where like what they liked was very twisted and very, twisted and very dark. And it was like almost self-loathing. And she sees that was connected to a lot of the things in her past. So she's bringing up a lot of this in these characters. Let's see what other folks say. Clarity Black says, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I watched the OG Girls and am now rewatching it after reading Famesick. And Adam really is the creepiest man who ever lived, one day telling pregnant Hannah, not his baby, that they should get married, and then the same night going to Jessa again. Driver sounded pretty creepy on the set as well. Now, @PrickB says, was that not them both cycling through edgy kinky talk that they both were convinced the other wanted to hear? That's the main thing I took from those moments. These young foolish folks trying to be edgy and kinky by repeating wild stuff they very likely heard or saw from Korn, which unfortunately so many people, young and old, still do. Yeah, that's the thing, like Hannah also did things like that, and I don't know like who started it. I feel like the general vibe of this whole thing is like they both did this back and forth. Like she would talk to her friends about, why do I like when a guy, slaps me across the body? Why do I like that I have bruises from this encounter? It's a very consensual thing on both sides. Like I don't remember ever there being a scene between them where one of them said to stop, and I don't remember any of that. Like it was both very consensual, so I think we also have to see like Hannah's role in this as well. Lila182 says, I should rewatch, but doesn't Adam's backstory suggest he was an abuse victim? The way he deals with sex as a whole is strange, and he was an alcoholic since he was a kid. His sister's behavior also suggests family trauma, and wasn't she addicted to... I don't think it was only bad humor. I think it was a hint about his past. It's very similar actually to Jessa, which I hate that I'm saying this, but Adam and Jessa are very similar in that realm. Not saying I want them to be together, never did, never do. But that's why they're actually really similar, is because they both have a background, and obviously that's why they started getting close, is because they were both in these AA meetings together. An addiction doesn't have to be to a substance. You can have an addictive behavior that has to do with something else. Like I've definitely struggled with that. Like I get very obsessed with things and my mind like cannot get off of it. And that stems from things in my childhood. And I think it brings about a lot of amazing things and talents and like, oh my gosh, I have these goals and I will not stop until I reach it. But it also can get dangerous. I mean, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, but addictive behavior is addictive behavior. And a lot of times we see people who might be sober from drugs or alcohol, but then they go and become a workaholic or just a workaholic in general. Like that is an addictive behavior. People who are obsessed with work, people who can't get off their phones, people who just are thinking about it 24/7 and constantly bother you and constantly make everything a fire, that is an addictive behavior as well. And I think it just ebbs and flows into, substance or sex or whatever it might be. It's all the same. It was definitely too dark for Natalia, for sure. It would definitely be too dark for probably a lot of the people commenting on this, probably a lot of the people watching this. But I think in relation to Hannah, that's what they did. Like, was it right? Was it wrong? I don't think that's necessary to answer because so many of the show is gray. And is it even right of us to say, well, that's right, that's wrong? Like, it just is. It just was. There's plenty of people doing things like that right now. Are we gonna go knocking on their door and say, hey, this is wrong? There's obviously somehow a connection to both Hannah and him and how that might be stemming from something. And that in and of itself is wrong, whatever happened to them, for sure. Fan theory number 5, Shosh was icky AF, says Disastrous Power 5532. Shosh was icky to me. I get that she had issues, but every time I try to understand her, I get this wave of negativity. Can someone help me understand her as a character? Shadayland21 says all the characters are unlikable on purpose. And I actually have a video about that right up here because it's very different from a lot of the pop culture we see. I talk about this all the time, how usually we're like rooting for a character and it's very obvious that like this character is good, this character is bad, this person did a good thing, this person did a bad thing. But in this show, it's very gray, just like life is. Suitable at 1990 says, all of the humor in the show is based in the irony that despite these people being entitled a-holes who are horribly codependent on each other, they can still be charming, funny, smart, etc. The ridiculousness of the girls' inability to hold themselves accountable is the joke. And Lena does a great job at showing their flaws while humanizing them and letting the audience sympathize with them, even when they're wrong, which is most of the time. I agree with Suitable Ad. I think that was really, really well said. There is always a white to the black. There's always a yin to the yang. We as people can be a good person, but also do bad things. There could be bad people who do good things. And even labeling people as good and bad is like, who says that? Are we to judge? No, we're not. And that's a big part of girls in general. Like, who are we to judge these girls if we know that we've done a lot of bad things? These are just highlighted more in the show. The cast on Friends does a lot of bad things, many more things than are put on screen, but we want to love them. A good example of this is Seinfeld, because we see these characters constantly doing really bad things, and they never actually learn from their mistakes. Usually what happens in a TV show is that by the end of the episode, the character has somehow grown in a way. Jess from New Girl has learned a little bit more about, you can't control Nick. He's just gonna be Nick, and he's gonna wanna drive a truck on the moon, and you can't control him. You can only control yourself. And so then the next episode, we're kind of picking up from that and learning a different lesson. But with shows like Girls and Seinfeld, sometimes you're picking up from an episode and you're just like, you went and did it again. You did it again. I was rooting for you. I thought you'd learn. Hannah's done so many things. We talked about Homeward Bound last episode, about how she basically assaulted Ray in the truck after she went through experiences like getting touched by her boss in that one job she had. You would think by that time, it's like, okay, I'm not going to touch other people without their consent, but no. And you're like, why are you doing this? Tappity tap 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 says she's an entitled princess. I mean, they all kind of act that way, even the boys, but Shosh especially. I never liked her character. Smoked that one time. I'm a Shosh. And it's okay if you don't like me. We can be difficult to love. Bone Daddy says, icky to you how? Like, what parts of her don't you like? I love Shosh, but I always felt like she didn't really fit in with the other girls. I mean, she only became part of their circle because she thought they were cooler than the other girls she knew, and I think it really backfired on them. Her personality just doesn't really align with theirs. We saw this in Beach House. I also felt like she was sort of an afterthought to the girls due to her coming into their little group later. Knowing that she's Jessa's cousin too, it could have just been kind of like, hey, can I bring my cousin? Like, she's trying to meet new people. It's like, oh, okay. And she seems to be a last call, even though she was first to help Hannah when she came back and Adam was dating Mimi Rose, Eleanor Howard. She was such a helpful friend, but Hannah just never treated her well. She never told her she was pregnant. She's always been an afterthought. So that's why she, out of all the characters, has a lot of growth throughout the show. Does she speak to them in the nicest way at the end? I don't think so. But her awareness is a lot different than theirs. The Real Woman says, just want to say I respect that you're trying to understand her better. I think a big issue, she really never fit in with the other girls as well as she wanted, and she had a lot of insecurities, which tends to make people act in a way that gives you the ick. The trying too hard type. I don't think the others were indifferent to her, but she wasn't their first thought. Yeah, agreed. Hannah straight up never tells her she's pregnant in the end, which seems to be the final nail in the coffin. I think Shosh just realized she didn't have to be friends with them. The pretty purse line to me was just something she could quickly throw out in a heated moment. I don't think it's a telling statement like the others do. People say weird stuff when they're worked up. And I agree. And it's okay that you don't understand a certain character. I know the first few watch arounds, I'm like, Marnie, why? Why are you being you? And we're also not gonna like every single person we come across in our entire lives. But it's great that we have this awareness. And that's the beauty of girls as a whole, is that we see the characters and we reflect on how they make us feel about ourselves and about the people around us. Now, if you didn't watch that episode I've been referencing, go ahead and watch that next. You're gonna love it. Hit subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I will see you next time, friend. Bye.